Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show. And today you are going to be dazzled hearing the story of Jeremy Woodward. This is called Heart Failure to Victory. Folks, you heard it before. I always say live a life worth telling a story about. What's your story? And I know each and every one of you right now who's huffing and puffing around the neighborhood, you're working out, you're listening to the show, that each of you has a special story. But I believe that you're going to draw strength, energy, and life from hearing the story about Jeremy Woodward today. Now, Jeremy's a guy that reached out to me many months ago and shared his book with me. And I read his book, Heart Failure to Victory, and I was inspired. I laughed, I smiled, I even cried reading his amazing story. It is absolutely inspiring. And I know when you hear Jeremy talk today, not only going through one, but two heart surgeries. His first one when he was 21, his second heart surgery when he was just 29 years old. Folks, it is inspiring to hear his mindset, his heart set of what he's done to overcome, to persevere through challenge. He's a father of 3 beautiful girls. He's a husband of an amazing wife. And he is a fitness studio owner now as well, after having a career change because of the curveballs that life threw him. This is an amazing story, and I want you to tune in. There's a couple, 2 or 3 little glitches where the audio cut out for just a couple seconds. So when that happens, I want you to take his martial arts background and take 2 or 3 deep breaths and enjoy every moment of today's episode. I do believe you're going to find great value in it. Without further ado, let's go out to Jeremy Woodward and hear about heart failure to victory now. Folks, you are in for a treat today. I got my man, Jeremy Woodward, in the house. Jeremy, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great, Todd. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
It is awesome. Hey, where do you live right now? Where are you recording this from?
From Concord, New Hampshire, the Great 603.
All right, Concord, New Hampshire. What a story. What an absolute story, Jeremy. I, number one, want to say thank you for even sharing this story in your book. It's amazing. Heart failure. Jeremy Woodward's story of heart failure to victory. And I want to talk about that today, but you're also a trainer. You're a coach, or you're an impact maker. That's why you're on the Impact Show. But I do want to start with what took my breath away, literally, when I was reading the book about your heart history. Take me back. Tell me about your story and what unfolded with having not 1, but 2 heart surgeries at a young age, nonetheless. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man. It's been a crazy, crazy ride, Todd. First off, I am a husband and dad to 3 amazing, beautiful girls.
How old are they? How old are the girls?
They are 12, 9, and my youngest just turned 4 last week. So,
it's full, brother.
Oh, I do. But you know what, though? I wouldn't trade anything for the world. They are amazing. Amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, I was born with a congenital heart defect, which was a bicuspid aortic heart valve. Okay. And basically your aortic valve should have 3 little leaflets that helps facilitate blood flow out into the body. Mm-hmm. I was only born with 2, which is actually quite common. More and more people that I talk to about certain heart defects, it's typically what they have. For most people, it doesn't cause any issues. But for me, at a young age, at 21, almost 22 years old, I ended up developing bacterial endocarditis, which was a really bad infection. It was a pea-size, about a pea-size abscess that grew on the valve, on the diseased valve, and made me really ill. I got really sick over a period of about 2 or 3 months. I got rushed down to a Boston hospital. They went in, they did their thing. They opened me up through open heart surgery, put in a tissue valve, which I had the option. They said to me, we can either do a tissue valve and we're going to be returning back in anywhere from 7 to 15 years, or we can do a mechanical heart valve and hopefully it will be for the rest of your life. You'll never have to have any issues done again. However, you'll be on blood thinners. Once they said blood thinners, it scared the heck out of me. And I said, no way. I don't want to do that. I'm going to take my risk here and let's go with the tissue valve. I went with a tissue valve. 7 years later, almost to the day of my heart surgery, I ended up becoming symptomatic again, but the symptoms were very different, Todd. And I noticed that I was on a bike ride with some friends and we were going up a hill. I've been up this hill a million times before, right? I go up this hill, I had to get off my bike. And any of the listeners out here listening right now know that if you're on a bike and you get off that bike to walk your bike up that hill, if you're riding with friends, they are going to give you a hard time for the rest of your life, right? And to this day, those friends still give me a hard time whenever we go out riding. So we get a good laugh each time. But I didn't know, because the symptoms were so different this time. I was beginning to get into the worst stage of heart failure. My heart, my organs, everything was beginning to shut down.
And you're 27 at that point, 27, 28 years old.
Yeah. So my first one was 20. I was 22. 7 years later, I'm 29 years old. And I had just turned 29 years old. And, I started noticing, and, the symptoms were weight gain. And I attributed it to, because I had just started a career in fitness, and I attributed it to just the natural stresses. But when I went from 170 pounds to 175 to 185, I was like, no way, something's wrong. And we went in, we did a number of tests. They couldn't figure out what was going on at the time. And then almost 50 pounds later, and it was all fluid. My wife had finally had enough, because I had a couple nights where I just couldn't sleep. And I tell her, it's like, I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm not going to wake up. She got me in the car. She said, let's go. We're going to Boston. We went down to Boston. They looked at me. They noticed that on the side, my carotid artery, it was exploding, basically.
Wow.
I mean, it was pulsing so hard. And they're like, you may not ever walk out of this hospital again. Just prepare for that. You are in the worst stage. We don't even know how you made it this long. You're 50 pounds overweight with fluid. Your organs are shutting down. Very good chance you're not walking away. And I was the lucky one. I was the lucky 1% that walked out alive.
Jeremy, I want to step back here, because you just brought me through 2 heart surgeries in just a few minutes. But I can bet there were some long, sleepless nights, some why me, woe is me, I'm 21 years old and I'm having a heart surgery. That's supposed to be when you're like in your 70s, right? Like, why is it happening to me? I want to go into the mindset of that. And when you're 21, did you know prior to 21 years old that you had been born with a congenital issue? Or was it all of a sudden at 21, you started getting symptoms?
Yeah, no, I knew from an early age that I did have a bicuspid aortic heart valve. Each time I would go to the dentist, I would pre-medicate for any dental procedures, which is very common. It's a common practice. I knew, but I was healthy.
How did you know?
I had an issue when I was really, really young. They did an echo at the time, and they noticed that the valve, because that's how typically they can hear it, pick it up, or they can see it on an echocardiogram. And so they told me, they're like, you do have this valve that didn't form correctly. It's a bicuspid as opposed to a tricuspid. And you may go through your entire life and never have any issues. But somehow, we don't know how it happened, but I picked up some sort of infection that got in that first time and caused that valve to just deteriorate even more so. And ultimately making me very ill. And, the symptoms were flu-like symptoms.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So here you are, you as you progress to your late teens, early 20s, you start having more symptoms. You have this surgery, but take me into the mindset leading up to surgery. Were you in a dark place? Were you like, I just got to deal with it and get on with the rest of my life? Take me into the mindset of pre-heart surgery at 21 years old.
At 21, I felt invincible. I felt that I can do this. This is just part of life. I'm going to get through this. I had another friend at the time who had dealt with cancer. I knew that, okay, they got through it. I'm going to get through this.
Yep.
I had no idea at the time until, after post-op, how serious it was. And I think if I had known how serious it was, I probably would have had a different, I may have gone to that dark place, but my history, I grew up playing basketball. I've grown up doing martial arts. I feel like a warrior. I feel like I can take on anything. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I got through this, and I just lived my life every day after 22 years old, having this first heart surgery. I'm like, they told me that, 7 to 10 years later, I may have to have this done again. I'm going to live every day, right? I'm going to go out there and do all the crazy things, fall off my bike, get kicked in the head in karate, do all that crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden reality struck a second time. Now I'm married. My wife and I want to start a family. I go into that place of that may not ever happen.
Yep.
And then you start, for me, that's when I started going into a deeper place, but I had to stay strong. I had to stay strong for her. Time, I wasn't married and I had to stay strong for her. So I went to a place that I've never been before mentally.
Before you go there, I got to share the story because I laughed so hard in the book when you shared after your first surgery, you decide, hey, I'm going to do a triathlon. And in that triathlon, some funny things happened. Tell me about your first triathlon experience. Yeah.
So it's funny. I didn't decide to do it, right? I got put into a bet. I was in karate class and one of my buddies was like, because this triathlon was 2 weeks away. He's like, you're not going to do this. No way. You won't sign up. I was like, you want to make a bet? I'll do anything. I don't care. It's a swim. I only got to swim a half a mile. Anybody can do that. Right. And I was like, I can bike. I got an old bike and I can run. I definitely can run. I'll handle it. Right. And this first triathlon, it was a sprint distance, half-mile swim, 15-mile bike ride, and a 5K. It was the hardest thing at that point in my life that I had ever done. I got to the swim. I didn't have a wetsuit, which thinking back on it now, oh my gosh, it was crazy. The water was freezing. I had goggles that were broken. I was wearing basketball shorts that were too big for me.
Time out. As you go through this, Jeremy, just so you know, because I have not told you this, although I didn't have heart surgery, my first triathlon experience was so similar to yours. So as you're going through this, I want to tell you that I'm dying laughing reading this because when we were going through the book, I was like, oh my God, I did my first triathlon. I did not have a wetsuit and I'm a Clydesdale. I thought it was cool that a Clydesdale, 200 pounds plus, I was 220, was lobbed in with all of the pro triathletes. And by the way, it was done at Big Bear, which Big Bear is at like 5,000 feet.
Oh, so my goodness.
Half the altitude, half the oxygen at altitude. I didn't train swimming. So when you're swimming and you got to suck in oxygen, you got half the oxygen. I about drowned in the swim. So I was laughing really because I was walking on the sand, trying to do the old paddle and walk on the sand. And like the lifeguards were coming around me like, are you all right? I'm like, no, can I like hang on your board for a few minutes? So I was laughing about the swim. Keep going because every one of your stories, I have a very, very similar experience to what you share here. Keep going.
Well, it was awesome because it was a mass start swim, right? So I'm in my age group. We go out, in a mass start with our group, and I get out there, and I think we were one of probably the middle groups. We were in like the middle group to start. Well, my cap falls off. My wife is watching on shore. She just sees a whole group of guys out there, right? She doesn't know that I'm the one all the way in the back, absolutely struggling. I had no idea what to do. My parents had a pool at their house when we were growing up, but I never did any competitive swimming whatsoever. I just said, I can do this. I'm invincible, right? Oh, I'll get through this. Man, was it an awakening. But I think I was the second to last one to get out of the water. I get out of the water. I am stumbling. Anybody who has done a triathlon knows when you get out of that water and you go to a vertical position, you feel like you are drunk. Your legs are totally, it was pretty wobbly, but I got on my bike. It was a road bike triathlon, but I had a suspension fork on my road bike, which looked totally foolish. I had no idea. I just borrowed it from a friend, right? Did the bike. I overshot. I did 2 loops on the bike course, which was only supposed to be like 1.5 or something. And then when I got out on the run was a total nightmare. I went out on the wrong way on the run. And, but I have since learned, since that day back in 2005.
They had to pick you up. You went the wrong way. They had to pick you up, right, and drive you to the finish line?
Yes. And I was out on a closed bike course, which was embarrassing as it was anyway, right? Because now I'm coming back and I had no idea where I was. And I'll never forget it. In fact, now one of my buddies, one of my best buddies, because this was done on a military base in Western Massachusetts. One of my buddies is in charge of that base.
Man, well,
Yeah.
I laugh because I was reminiscing back in Big Bear. This was probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, my first sprint triathlon. That swim, I went out like in the first wave and I ended up like in the last wave. People were flying by me. They're kicking me in the face. I'm like trying to like punch them instead of swim. So I get out of the water and I go to the bike. I was like, I had a mountain bike with suspension, and the mountain bike was like, I'm getting passed by, I'll just say, much older men and women. That I'm like, how are they passing me? This is ridiculous. And there's mountains in Big Bear and there's altitude. So I'm just like out for this cruise. Finally, I get to the run, 3.2 miles. I'm like, this is easy. So what do I decide to do? I'm going to wear my racing flats. Like I'm a real like 220-pound sprinter, right? So I've got my racing flats and I was like jogging the 3.2 miles. The altitude kicked my butt. I don't even know what I finished in, but it was the most I'll say embarrassing experience that I've had as a sprint triathlon guy. And I was like, wow, I was not prepared for the altitude and that swim that kicked my butt. So I love that, and I thank you for sharing it. How long after your heart surgery did you do that sprint triathlon?
After my first one, it was 4 or 5 years post my first surgery. And then my wife and I, because we had just got married that summer when I did the race. And then 2 years later is when I got really sick the second time.
So let's talk about that. You get sick the second time. You're now 27. Was it 27, 28 years old?
29 years old.
You're 29 years old. And you made a promise to yourself the night before that second surgery.
Mm-hmm.
What was that promise?
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. Okay. My first surgery, I think I was in the hospital for 4 days. Okay. There was so much that went on. I didn't have a lot of time to think when I was in the hospital, right? Sure. This second time around, I got hospitalized. I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks prior to my operation. I had a lot of time to think, Todd. And the night before my surgery, I said, okay, what do I want to do? What if this surgery is successful and they don't have to do a heart transplant? Because that's what we were initially told. They said that, you very well likely are not going to walk out of here. At best, we're going to put you on a heart transplant list. And in an amazing situation, given what, the situation that you're in, you're going to walk out of here with a new mechanical valve. We won't know until we get in there and to see what the damage is. So I had a lot of time to think. And I thought to myself, okay, I want to make the biggest impact I can on my community. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just said, this is how I'm going to do it. Right. And I thought, I need a scary, crazy goal. And I thought, all right, I had a couple of friends who had done the Ironman. And I was like, I'm going to do the Ironman. I'm going to shoot so far and just say, the Ironman is what I want to do. If I get out of here, I walk out of here and I get the green light from my cardiothoracic team to do this, that's where I'm going. So from that moment on, the night before, I said, I'm going to do the Ironman and I want to make an impact on our community. And how I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that I wanted to make some sort of impact, whether it was inspiring, fundraising, whatever it might be. Sure. And, years later, it's all come together. So it's been a pretty crazy ride since.
So that night before, was that the commitment you made to yourself and the promise you made to yourself that if I come out of this and I'm alive, I'm going to be an impact maker?
Absolutely. 100%. And I told my wife too, and she just looked at me and she's like, Jeremy, she's like, you just need to get through the surgery. She's like, you have no idea, Jeremy, what lies ahead of you with this, because she's like, you are not in a good situation. You may not even make it through the surgery. So, and I was like, this is what's going to keep me driven. I want to make this impact. I want to make a change in whatever that's going to look like.
What was your job at that point in your life? You're 29 years old, married. What was your career?
So I had just started a career in fitness about 6 months prior. Prior to that, I had worked for my father. He had a construction business. So I worked, as part of that. And then prior to that, I worked in retail. But I got in the construction business. I was there for about 3 years, and I just knew that it wasn't for me, but it was a point in my life where I could learn something new. I knew that I love fitness. I wanted to be a part of it, and I was going to do whatever I could to be in the fitness world. I linked up with a studio here in town. I started training clients. I built up a clientele really fast. The hardest thing, Todd, about all of this was that I built up this clientele quickly in about a 4-month period prior to me getting sick, and then having to call every one of those clients and say, I'm going to be out indefinitely. And if you want to move on to another trainer, go for it. I'm going to miss you, but I don't know when I'm coming back, if I'm even coming back.
Yeah. Just to move forward, when you did come back, did they all come back to you?
Yes, sir, they did.
Yeah. Shows you sometimes our greatest fears never come true, right?
Absolutely.
We build in these excuses of like, man, if I'm out 3 months or 6 months, or man, I'm going to lose my business, or I'm going to lose my clients, I'm going to lose my members. And sure enough, when people love you and they trust you, that they'll always be in your corner, and you realize that it's a way stronger bond than you could even imagine. So shows us all that sometimes our greatest fears never come true, but we build in the answers, and we answer for our clients and members before they even have a chance to share, because they probably want to be in your corner the whole time anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I thought, at the time I was in the middle, I was just, starting out in this business and building the relationships. Mm-hmm. And when I got hospitalized, I mean, I had clients that were driving to Boston, which is 60 miles away from my home, bringing my wife meals, saying hello. I mean, just to see that, it was amazing. And I just knew that these clients are going to be friends of mine, and they're going to be a part of my life forever, and which many of them still are to this day.
Jeremy, talk about martial arts, because in your book, you throughout the book refer to your martial arts experiences from the time you were a young boy all the way up to the time you were at a high school party for the first time. You transferred schools, you were a basketball player, you transfer schools, you go to this party, and you almost got in a fight, but you went to your sensei afterwards. He said if you go to another, the problem wasn't in the fight, it was you actually made a choice to go to the party, and if you do that again, you're going to get kicked out of the dojo. I was like, man, I like that, sensei. That's talking about choices. But martial arts throughout your entire life has had a huge impact. But share with me, I wonder about these darkest days. In your darkest days, in the first surgery, second surgery, or even in other aspects of life, mm-hmm. How has martial arts impacted you? How has it helped you?
I could talk about this for hours, Todd, right? It has had such an impact on me from a mindset standpoint, from a physical. I mean, my instructor, who I've been with for 25 plus years of my life. He has been somebody, I mean, I remember when I first met him, I said, this is who I want to be like when I grow up. This is what I want to do. I want this to be a part of my life forever. And just over the years, the attention to detail, the intensity, just everything that I've learned from it, I've been able to take it, and some of my hardest moments, darkest moments in my life, I've been able to reflect back on and say, okay, I can get through this because I have this mindset. I have this warrior mentality that I can't be broken and I won't be broken.
What's his name?
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy. Yeah. He is a dear friend of mine. He and we still work out to this day. Every Thursday, it's every Thursday at 11:30. It's one of my favorite hours of the week because I get to go in, he and I train. And, through the evolution of a martial artist, over the years, you get to a point where, okay, the techniques and the material, you've learned all of that. Right. But then you get to a point where so much of it is, from a mental standpoint, how to put things together, how to do this, how to do that. Yeah. And it becomes such a mind, a mind game. And it's everything in the world. And I've always said, when I die, I'm probably going to die doing martial arts.
When you talk about Jeff Hardy and when you write about him in your book, there's obviously a huge respect that you have for him. When you're making big decisions in life now, do you ever ask yourself, like, what would Jeff Hardy do?
Every single day.
Yeah,
every single day.
I think we all have those people in our life where when you're contemplating things, when you're making big decisions, you're like, what would your sensei do? What would Jeff Hardy do? What would Jesus do? What would, you ask whoever your mentors or coaches are, what would they do in this situation? And I know, because you alluded to it many times, about how martial arts has had such a positive impact in your life. And now when you say martial arts, like a Thursday, what is that martial arts to you? What kind of martial arts? And is it more of a gentle type martial arts, or is it a very physical type martial arts that you're practicing?
Yeah, so I have studied. It's a form of Kempo. It's called combined Kempo. That I've studied, almost since day one. I have a 5th degree black belt in that. I have a black sash in Kung Fu. I've trained in other.
Stop that. You just blew by that. Did you say a 5th degree black belt?
I have a fifth degree black belt in Kempo karate. Yeah,
you just skipped by that like it was no big deal. Like, I'm a double heart surgery survivor, and I've got a 5th degree black belt. This is okay. Keep going. I just want to make sure that all of our listeners heard that.
Yes, sir. That is correct. And I have a black sash in Kung Fu. I've trained in Muay Thai, kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've done some specialty stuff in Krav Maga, which I absolutely loved, doing that as well. So, on my Thursday, he and we work out because of the pandemic over the last 13, 14 months. We haven't been doing much contact stuff at all. So it is really a lot of forms, material, just diving deep into, the highest ranking material that we have. Prior to that, because of me being on Coumadin, I have to be very careful about getting hit or falls. So I've just modified my training. And, that was the reason I didn't get a mechanical valve on my first surgery. My first surgery was because I was competing a lot in tournaments and I didn't want to mess that up. So, but the second time around, my doc said, we are not doing this. You're getting a mechanical valve. And
that's more important, competing or life. I'll take the competing, please. I'll take the lesser of the evils. I want to keep competing for the next decade, even if I die. I like that.
Totally.
I knew I had an affinity toward you, Jeremy. I love it. With all of these martial arts, how would you say could the layperson use some aspect of what you use in martial arts to help them through difficult times?
Great question. Going back to mindset, thinking about what is important, how to get through it. Like, for example, when we are dissecting a form that we have, a martial arts form, we have to dig in deep on the form because there's more to just kicks and punches and everything. We have to dig in deep. And I've been able to take that and to look at these forms, to dissect the forms. And then I can take that into everyday practices in my life. And I'll just, and I'll use it to dissect, like, is this a good decision? How should I do this? How should I plot this out? Where should I go? What should I do? So there are a lot of relationships, and that's how I've been able to, get through some, carve out some of these, decision-making processes over the years.
Yeah. One of the things I love about many different forms of martial arts, well, no, I'll say all forms, is that breath is a component.
Oh, huge
component, whether it's a gentle form or even a very intense, vigorous form of martial arts, breath work and meditation. Do you concentrate on all in meditation or breath work, or how do you do that?
Yes, I have over the years. A big part of what we do is breath work. Even though the combined Kempo style that I study as my major study, as my primary, there is a lot of hard striking, a lot of rigidity to it. There is also a lot of breath work. Now, some of the other stuff that I do, there's not as much of a focus on there, but obviously the breath work is important to this. But yeah, meditation, having 3 children, a business, training, being on the go all day, every day, I am doing a much better job with taking 15 minutes a day and just sitting down and just, whether it's taking a quick walk in the woods, sit down and just breathe. And it definitely makes all the difference in the world, for sure.
Wow. That's awesome. With all that you just mentioned, all those different hats that you wear, what would you say up to this point in your life is your greatest victory?
Being a dad. Definitely, to 3 girls. I mean, they're amazing. And it's the hardest. It's definitely the hardest to overcome. Second would be overcoming heart failure. I mean, it was looking back on it now. And that's why we wrote the book, because I wanted to be able to inspire other people. In fact, I had a person just message me from Washington State. They messaged me and they're like, hey, I'm about to undergo major open heart surgery. I read your book. Now I know I can get through this. So that's why I wrote it, to be able to inspire people to just, to be able to just, be able to know that you can get through it.
What do you love most about being a dad?
Seeing the girls grow and their personalities. Each one of our girls has a different personality. Just seeing their victories every day, helping them through their struggles. This past year has not been easy whatsoever. We homeschooled our girls. We had the choice to, remote learn where we are, but we made the decision to homeschool. So we knew that the girls would have a consistent schedule every single day, to be around them every day as much as we have been. It's been amazing. And a chance, if you're looking at any silver linings over the past year, that's definitely been a silver lining for us.
Jeremy, what's your prognosis now with your heart moving forward? What do they say? Are you healthy for life? Are you expected that you're going to need another heart surgery? What are they telling you that your prognosis is?
As long as I stay healthy and stay fit, then I will likely not ever have to have another surgery again. The valve I have is a St. Jude mechanical valve, and I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to go out to see how and where they manufacture my type of valve. And it's typically not the valve that fails, it's how it's sutured in to your heart, or around the heart muscle. And that's typically what happens, if it blows or you have any issues. And, as long as I don't do single rep maxes in the weight room, keep stress levels down as much as I can, then I should live a very healthy, fit life, and not ever have another surgery again. Good. Now, on the other side of that, if I did have to go in and have another surgery, medical technology has improved massively over the last 13 years. I mean, they're doing portals now where they're coming under your ribs doing valvular replacements, or TAVRs, which is a transarterial valvular replacement. They just go right up through your leg. And if I ever have to have it done again, hopefully that's how it happens, and they don't have to crack me open, because I've had my chest cracked open twice and it's awful, Todd. There's nothing, to me, I had a really rough time the second time around, and I don't ever want to go through that. That's what keeps me up at night, thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially at such a young age, right? 21, yeah. 29. Like anyone, doesn't matter, but that is tough. What do you think the greatest lesson that you've learned from having 2 heart surgeries is?
To live every single day like there is no tomorrow. To make an impact, be kind, be positive. That's it. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job of that prior to my first surgery. Definitely after my second. Definitely after the first one. But even after my second one, I was like, I will never take life for granted ever again. I mean, it could all change in a moment's notice, just like that.
So when you say live life to the fullest, that's what it's all about, is you've learned that through your trials and tribulations.
Absolutely. I mean, not every day is going to be perfect, right? We're going to have our challenges. We're going to have our, trials put in front of us, but you live every single day as if it is your last.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about today. What are you doing these days to stay strong? Are you behind any charities? How do you spend your time? Obviously, you've got your studio now. You're changing lives there. Tell us what you're doing now to make a big impact in your community.
Yeah, so I have run for the last 6 years for Teddy Bruschi's team. I'm sure you know Teddy. Yeah. Oh, he's an amazing guy. I've run for his team. Huh. And I'm going to continue to do so in some level, some capacity. So, we raise money for stroke and heart disease awareness. I'm closely connected to a few other organizations here in my community. I am hoping that, well, actually this morning I just got off the phone with an individual. I'm likely going to run an Ironman again this year. I want to go back. I want to do my second one. After last year, I was like, I got to get back out there. I want to get on the Ironman course and do it again, and repeat what I did back in 2010 and, cross the finish line again. So that's where I'm at, and just, trying to make an impact and change people's lives the best that we can.
So when you ran an Ironman 2010, did your wife think you were crazy?
She thought I was nuts, man. And I was just talking to her this morning. I said, hey, I was like, hey, Brooke, I was like, I'm thinking about doing it again. What do you think? And she's like, all right. She's like, you're nuts. She's like, you're crazy. But now the difference, Todd, now is that I got 3 girls. Before I only had 1, so it was much easier to manage. But I got 3 girls now, so we need to, find that balance point.
What was your time in the Ironman?
My first one was 15 hours and 46 minutes, I believe. So I was at the other end. I was in the glow stick times.
Yeah.
But man, I didn't care because it has never been my goal. I don't care whether I'm the first person to finish or the last person. I am just so grateful and thankful to be able to get to that start line and to get to the finish line. It's one heartbeat at a time, right?
Well, you epitomize Iron Man, and it doesn't matter if you are first or last. You are an Iron Man as a 2-time, heart surgery survivor and someone who's run multiple Ironmans and triathlons and have started your fitness business and as a dad and as a husband, so many great things. You talk about heart failure to victory. I know there's someone listening in today, and maybe it's not heart failure. Maybe it's not necessarily a heart challenge or disease, but maybe there's other physical ailment or a mental health challenge going on right now that you're speaking life into, Jeremy. And I just want to say thank you for the life that you are living. I talk about all the time, live a life worth telling a story about. What's your story? You have one heck of a story. And when I learned of it, I'm like, man, I got to get Jeremy on the podcast because this is the kind of stuff I love. Someone who's kind of been down and out and questioned, how do I keep moving forward? And not only have moved forward, but man, you have truly impacted thousands and thousands of people. I know you're just getting started. So thank you for what you do, how you show up to your family, to your wife and your 3 beautiful girls, and to your fitness community and to this world, man. The world needs more lighthouses like you. And I just want to say thank you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Todd. After you spoke at a conference that I was at years ago. You were in Boston. I believe it was with Perform Better. I think it was Perform, but it was when I first got started. I remember hearing you talk.
Better, Reggie Lewis Center.
Yes, at the Reggie Lewis Center, exactly. Yeah, right. Yep. And in Dorchester. And I remember seeing you there and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And then, years later, I'm on a show with you right now, which this to me is like one of the highlights of my years so far, right? This is awesome. But I thank you for everything that you're doing. And for anybody listening, just know that as hard as it may be, whatever it is, illness, personal issues, professional, whatever it might be, you can get through this. You will get through this. You just have to put your head down and just dig in and go. My first training day, Todd, started the day after my heart surgery. I started with 1 lap around the ICU. And then the next day I was in there because I was in the IC for a couple of days. It was 3 laps and then 4. And then I was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks post-op. Every day I was adding laps on. And I just said, boom, I'm going to do it. And now thousands of miles later, we've been able to do what we've done. And, I've been able to do what I've done. It's pretty crazy. And like you said, I'm just getting started, man.
Yeah. And, when you say put your head down and keep going, I think that's part of the equation. I also know that who's in your corner in the tough times matters, right? And you've had some amazing people in your corner, including your sensei, right? And Jeff Hardy there about people. And I think that's always important, not only in good times, but in the tough times, that who you surround yourself with is absolutely important. We talk about, iron sharpens iron all the time. I know that you've always leaned on the people closest to you in your life. How important would you say that is for someone who's battling through some tough times right now?
I'd say it's 90% of the battle to have those people, to have my wife in my corner, through heart surgery. I mean, when we walked into that surgical room and the doctors looked at me and they just said, you may not ever walk out, to see the look on her face. I mean, she just broke down crying. Right. But I knew from there on that I've got a partner for life. She was with me, and 13 years later, we're still getting this done, and we're cranking it out, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that, Jeremy. If someone wants to learn more about you, they want to follow you on social media, they want to read your book, Heart Failure to Victory, where can they do that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Todd. You can go to ironheartjeremy.com, which is also on Instagram. I use the tag as Ironheart Jeremy. You can purchase the book on Amazon. Just look under Heart Failure to Victory. And, I co-wrote it with my good friend and martial arts training buddy, Ben Vayer. So yeah, you can contact us that way. I'm on social. You can look me up, Jeremy Woodward on Facebook. But I'm predominantly I'm doing a lot more work on Instagram.
Yeah. And I would say Heart Failure to Victory. That is your story, but your story is inspiring so many people beyond just heart failure, people that have been through adversity, challenge, strife, and they're facing that, and they've got this insurmountable event, tragedy, something in their life that they've got to overcome. Because the inspiration that one can draw from the book, folks, it is a must read. It's awesome. You're going to laugh. You're going to smile. You're going to cry. Because I did all of it, Jeremy. When I was reading, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Jeremy about this. So again, thank you for what you do. Thank you for showing up and persevering, not through one, but through two major heart surgeries, and overcoming and teaching so many wonderful lessons. And man, you certainly are an impact maker, brother. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Todd. And I have one ask of you. Okay.
What is that?
If I get out to California in 2022, I won't make it out there this year, but in 2022, you and I are going to find a sprint triathlon to do together, and we are going to totally rock this. How about it?
Under a few circumstances. Number one, we have wetsuits. Two, we have actually good bikes. And three, I don't wear racing flats in the run.
I love it. I'm in. You name the date, and I am in, Todd.
I love it. Done deal. Wow. Oh, wow. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Jeremy Woodward, Heart Failure to Victory. You've heard me talk so many times about live a life worth telling a story about. What's your story? What a story Jeremy Woodward has had in his young life. The perseverance, the discipline, the consistency, the sacrifice, the pain that he's endured through. And not only just come through, but actually is living a life that he's actually sharing and changing thousands of lives through what he's been dealt with. You know, you've heard me also say this. You don't know how strong you are until strong is all you have left. I know there are people who are listening to this right now. You're out for a walk, you're out for a run, you're working out, or you're sitting there and maybe you're even blue today. You're feeling down, depressed, and you're feeling empty. And you're like, you don't even know what's inside of you. Like, how do I draw? The well is empty. How do I draw some strength? I want to remind you to keep going, to keep persevering, to keep going deep, and to remind yourself that you're way stronger than you think. Because after all, you don't know how strong you are until strong is all you have left. Until next time, remember, train hard, eat right, live inspired, and as Jeremy Woodward would say, you always gotta live life to the fullest.